the sales rep who, when they lost a deal, because every sales rep loses deals, but
Mhm.
when they lost a deal, what they would do is they would send a handwritten note to that prospect like a couple weeks later, just saying, "Hey, thanks so much for, going through the sales process. Sorry it didn't work out going with us. Like, hope onboarding goes well with, whoever they lost to, like the competitor." And they would sometimes win deals back because like you're typically sending that handwritten note at a time where they're going through all boards off, and like it worked really well. It's such a simple thing to do.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. In this episode, we have on Braydan Young, who is a co-founder and growth officer of Sendoso. He's got a decade of experience in business development, and he initially led Sendoso's sales team before transitioning into his current role, where he's focusing on overseeing the company's technology and integration partnerships. Before founding Sendoso, Braydan had a significant role in demand base, bets recruiting, and Unum. His expertise lies in creating strong business relationships and scaling operations, which has been critical to Sendoso's growth and success, which is also why I'm excited to have him on the show. Braydan, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here. That's it's weird. It seems like a decade ago. Like the Unum. Actually, I think it was way more than a decade ago. Unum and all those places. All of a sudden, your 20s went fast.
Yeah, I had the very same experience. All of a sudden, found myself in my almost 40s, wondering
Yeah,
how I
that's where I
got
am right
here.
now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I'd love to start with a quick Cole's Notes background. What you were doing and how you kind of landed in this position.
Yeah, so started Sendoso about 8 years ago. We began on the like I was a salesperson, and the idea was it was really hard to get a meeting. And we're
Mhm.
like, what can we do that is more unique than just send an email or like just do a cold call? And we came up with this idea called Coffee Sender. And the idea was like, let's send a $5 Starbucks gift card to somebody and see if they'll take my meeting. Be like, hey, like, you have your pitch and be like, hey, here's, grab coffee, like, let's connect. And we built it on the side as kind of a side project. We launched it and it quickly caught on with a bunch of our friends in sales being like, hey, it's awesome. I'm actually getting a lot of conversions from people who actually want to connect with me because I'm standing out. I'm kind of like standing out like by sending a cool gift. And from there, folks were like, I want to do things other than just coffee. I want to do like different coffee locations. I want to do physical things. I want to do things like cookies and wine for the holidays. And I want to take it, I want to be able to track it in Salesforce and Dynamics. And I want to be able to prove that sending a gift is really effective and more effective than just doing a regular email, just doing a regular, phone call. So we changed it from Copy Center to Sendoso, and that was kind of the first iteration of like, all right, let's take gifting and plug it into like our everyday experience of like interacting with prospects, interacting with customers, and that was sort of the beginning. And the light bulb went off. Where like, hey, we could actually get even more sophisticated, and account-based marketing was kind of the big thing at the time. And so we started launching integrations into Salesforce, into Outreach, into Salesloft, into different tools like account-based marketing tools where you can incorporate gifting into those. And we saw success there as well. So that was kind of the iteration of it and how it began. Lots of side stories there, but that's the 40,000 foot view. We quickly learned like we're like, all right, if we're sending gifts around, physical things, we got to figure out warehousing. So we raised a little bit of money and then a little more and then a little more money and grew more and more people. And we opened up a couple warehouses. Now we have five. And from there, all of a sudden COVID hit. And COVID was like the best thing ever for Sendoso because everybody was stuck at home. And everyone was like, how do I engage with my customers, my prospects, my employees if I can't see them face to face? Like I know I'll send gifts, I'll do remote experiences, I'll send really cool care packages. And we were right there to send, to track, to automate, to plug into your integrations. And we grew really quickly, like over those like 2 years of the pandemic. And then came out now we're like, now we do a ton of that still, a ton of conferences still. So now we're kind of a hybrid, we like focus a lot on events and focus a lot on like stuff like people like being at home too. It's kind of the backstory. Today we're what are we now? About 300-ish people or so. We've raised about 200 million, which is a lot for like our warehousing and for our software as a whole. We plug into a ton of tools to make it easy for folks to do sends, for us to automate sends. Our biggest one being Salesforce, that most folks use. And then my job is the head of growth, which means nothing. That's a very San Francisco title. All it means is like whichever team needs the most help is where I live.
I remember now because I was unfamiliar with Sendoso, but I remember now maybe it's a podcast or an article that I read probably 5 or 6 years ago about your company and your model or the way that you were doing this. And I was like, I don't know if that even has a space here. What's stopping somebody from doing that activity on their own? And
Yeah.
I honestly, man, I didn't think that it was going to be a thing that lasted. And to hear the evolution of this thing, I am awestruck, and I am also like, I can't believe I was that wrong about something. What do you think attributed to this major disruption?
So I call it kind of the thank you letter or like the grandma phone call. So all of us like have the best intentions of sending like a note or calling your grandma or like sending a thank you note after you get a gift. Problem is none of us do it because we like most folks get distracted by it. They're like, oh, I got to do that. Then a month goes by, 2 months go by. So I think what's kept us and kept us growing is the automation side. So I can click one button and send you a gift immediately to say thank you or send you a t-shirt, or I can automate as your renewal approaches. I can have a really cool package goes to you. If you have a kid, I can send a package for your kid that, so like there's the automation side and the ease of it, I think is like what's kept us growing and scaling as a company. But then even more than that has been integrations. So we don't want to be your platform of record. Like we don't want you logging into Sendoso. So set up sends from SalesLoft, from Outreach, from Salesforce, from Dynamics. Like you don't have to log into our system. And I think too many softwares think they need to be the platform of record to have success. And you don't. There's enough data out there that you can have really great analytics that you just have to live on another system. So our goal is like, we don't want you to know what Sendoso is. Like that's not our goal. Our goal is that we just want to do less sending for people.
It's both remarkable and intriguing to see how well it was received. And as you were speaking there, one of the things that kind of popped in my head was there's this convenience element, and I don't want to oversimplify because I feel like even saying that is insulting. It's
Yeah.
so much more than that, but the idea that you take the logistics and difficulty of doing these things and make it that simple, I think is what I see being the thing that made it stick. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah. There was when we first started, I was to say there was always like a really good like power question. It would be like, hey, do you send holiday gifts? And every company was like, yeah, like we do popcorn or wine or whatever have you. And we'd always be like, that's awesome. Like, what'd you spend last year? Like I always spent 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand. Be like, awesome. Like, what'd that do for you? And everyone would be like, oh, I have no clue. Like I didn't track any of it. Or I gave my employee a bunch of like really cool Yeti mugs to hand out to their customers in person. I'm like, you know what? I bet those mugs are probably in the back of their car because they probably forgot to hand them out. And so it was a lot of like actually bringing tracking to the gifting world. Something that every company
Ooh.
does. Is no one's ever really tracked it because it's just one of those things that it just works. I just go see them in person or take them to lunch or things like that. I think that like our goal is like how can we track that, and that has been kind of our mission since we began. And yeah, I mean like the ease of it though, and like making it easy is what helped us kind of be around for 8 years for sure. And the space grow. I mean now we have competitors, which we used to not have competitors.
What an interesting
I
turn of
know,
events,
right?
right? Like you're doing this thing, you disrupt this entire industry, and imitation, I guess, is the highest form of flattery, which is pretty
Right?
cool.
As long as
Just
they keep the prices high, it's the goal.
yeah, as long as they don't figure out our secrets.
Yeah.
I'd love to get pick your brain on the technology that you're using. So I heard Salesforce. I heard that you aren't necessarily trying to be the hub as much as you are trying to be the enterprise where you connect seamlessly or integrate seamlessly with other tools. How is that possible?
The power of API calls and integrations. Every platform wants to, well, like one of their success metrics is like a lot of people spending time in our systems. And
Mhm.
our goal, that was never our mission. Our mission was like, can we be a plugin? So if you take Outreach or SalesLoft or any of those cadence sequence tools, and like you're building like a sequence out of like, hey, when my customer, opens up this email comes to them, this email comes to them. And like one of those steps could be a gift send. And it's as simple as like everyone has their own APIs. We built it to all of them. We have a really good team of engineers who are able to like basically plug into that stuff. And then in our system, you just OAuth into all of them. And we're able to basically make those systems be where you live. And you make a gift or a touch, you send something to our warehouse, it lives there. And if you want to have that as a send and one of those tools, it pops up and like a Chrome widget right there.
Okay, so how do you convince people or get interest in something like this? I imagine you're not doing a lot of traditional marketing in the way of like, print or television or radio or anything like that. It's probably predominantly online. Is that
Yeah,
the
it's
case?
online. It's a lot of events for us. If you're attending a conference, you're a good fit for us because that means you have a booth. That means you're handing out swag. That means you're sending reps somewhere to communicate with your product. And it's all about follow up after conferences. And so if you're at a conference, you're an awesome fit to use our product.
That's a very straightforward approach to the whole thing.
Right.
I, I,
ICP makes it a lot easier. You're like, no, that's what you're doing. Fantastic.
I think everybody has this tendency to try to overcomplicate things, and the more I'm talking to you, Brayden, the more I realize like there's just like a concerted effort to oversimplify this to make it really, really easy for people.
Yeah. I mean, we at the end of the day send gifts out. So it makes it easy just to, I mean, like, which is the most fun ever. Like we send gifts and people say thank you, and I mean, there's really no crazy overly complicated thing. It's pretty simple to have it go.
So, given the landscape of technology constantly evolving and new stuff happening at every turn, um, how do you guys approach integrating new technologies into your processes as necessary or if necessary? And I'm kind of more specifically leaning towards like AI and things like that. Are you deploying tools in that regard, or are you guys playing it safe?
Yeah, I mean, like I think that like you have to these days to survive, and we have a lot of really cool data on what gifts people like. So we've got to the point now we can recommend gifts. And so if I'm sending something to a CMO or to a CRO, we can be like, hey, this is a gift that we know works well with this person and this title. Not to the specific person, more like the title you're sending to. And so like we've gotten really good at that. I like suggesting things. We acquired a company called Alice a couple months ago, which is a competitor of ours. And they had a really great AI where they can actually do like gift suggestions, and it was awesome. So we used that, plugged in our tool. We can help with content now via AI, which is a very simple toe on the water AI thing where it's like, hey, I'm sending something to Brayden, like, can you help me write a message? And we call it Pun Pal. It'll like generate a message to that person, which is kind of a cool way to make it unique. Because no matter what you send, your content needs to be good.
Right. So, what kind of challenges do you see you facing as a result of some of this new technology? Are you
I think one of the big ones is like you can get too personalized. And so you want to make sure that you don't send something that's a little over the top. That's because someone posted like something on Instagram a long time ago and they're like, hey, that's weird that you followed me there. So that's one. Uh, Gifting is not a way to like people look at it as like buying a meeting sometimes. And like that's a problem where it shouldn't be used where like you upload a list of 10,000 email addresses and you send everybody a $5 gift card to DoorDash and you're like, hey, take my meeting. And like, and like maybe you can use AI to basically be like, hey, who's a good fit to send to? That's not the way it should be used. We see the most success people are using gifting after a first meeting. Maybe it's like they're trying to like grow and trying to speed up a deal. They're trying to approach a renewal. Like building a relationship is like where our platform is like used the best. As tech has gone through some major shifts and changes, retention is the biggest deal on the planet, right? So it's like, how can you have a relationship with your customer that they won't want to leave you? Like, it's not that they're leaving your company, they're leaving, you, Brayden. So it's important to have that good relationship, and like gifting helps do that because everyone you love, you've probably sent a gift to or received a gift from, and so why can't that work the same way on the side?
Yeah, there's this strange correlation that I've always found between sales and dating. And to not to overuse some of the analogies, but like there was this specific experience that I had when I was younger. Um, me and my girlfriend, she worked for Salvation Army. We got invited to a hockey game where you kind of jingle the bells, and wait for people to put change in the jar, and then when they do, you give them a candy cane. And we got all dressed up and went out, and I found that everybody that was around us was like intentionally trying to avoid making eye contact with us in any way. And so um, to combat that, what I ended up doing was breaking the rules, because they told you specifically not to do this. But I'm a rebel at heart, so I took the bin of candy canes. I grabbed a handful of them, and I just started wandering around in the crowd and handing out these candy canes to anybody and everybody who would pay me any kind of attention. And funny enough, what ended up happening was, without any expectation, because I really had no vested interest in this, I was just having a good time. It was a date night, experience, whatever. Um, and every time that I would hand somebody a candy cane, uh, about 9 times out of 10, they would turn around within a few steps and start shuffling through their pockets or their purse or something, and come up with some kind of change to add to the bucket. And by the end of the hockey game, we had to shut our booth down early because we had filled the bucket.
Reciprocity right there.
Yeah, so I find just the same. If you're buying a girl a drink at a bar, is not does not equal you get to go on a date with her afterwards. But the idea of like showing up and bringing value is super important. And I think that you kind of culture hacked that idea to some degree.
Yeah, my favorite send that I've ever seen done is it was it was the sales rep who, when they lost a deal, because every sales rep loses deals, but
Mhm.
when they lost a deal, what they would do is they would send a handwritten note to that prospect like a couple weeks later, just saying, "Hey, thanks so much for, going through the sales process. Sorry it didn't work out going with us. Like, hope onboarding goes well with, whoever they lost to, like the competitor." And they would sometimes win deals back because like you're typically sending that handwritten note at a time where they're going through all boards off, and like it worked really well. It's such a simple thing to do, and it's just a handwritten note, and I just thought it was brilliant. Like, so I think it's one of the best sense.
Yeah, and it's the ability to understand that in your marketing process is critical to any business who's aiming at growth, especially when the growth itself is difficult to achieve in a limited market. If you're dealing with CEOs, I mean, yeah, there's a few of them, but it's not 9 billion. So it takes a lot of foresight to be able to think about these things and implement them in a way that matters. And I think you're doing a wonderful job creating that opportunity for people and businesses. Beyond that, I would love to get your perspective on what is the future for Sendoso? What are you guys working on in terms of new stuff that's coming down the pipeline? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I think like the big step for us is introducing more AI. So being able to actually know what someone wants to receive is a big one. So like, and suggesting gifts, it's a big one. Uh, Being able to send a gift at the right time. So automations are very large. So rather than even having to go in and be like, oh, I need to send that person a Starbucks gift card or a hat, or something like that, where it's just a toggle of like, hey, send it out. And like just like after my person automatically, is being able to have like those automations, I think is important. I think as the entire sales and marketing more like AI automation type stuff, like could I do the job of 10 with 2 people because I'm using software? Like every software needs to play into that. And I think like we do as well, where it's not so much like I need to build a campaign where I'm sending these things out. It's more just like here's what works after a demo and make it easy. That's a big one. Gift exchange is a big one for us as well. It's like, hey, I don't want to receive a gift. I want to be able to donate the value of the gift to a charity. That's a big one that we just rolled out. Integrations are always big. Like with the new systems, like there's so many new platforms out there. And I feel like every day there's some new AI data platform that we need to figure out, who's going to win that space and plug into. I think that's going to be a big thing for us too. And then our thing, because we're not just software, we also have warehouses, is logistics. So we have like a day and a half SLA, which is great. But Amazon has like a 8 hour SLA. So how can we, get even better at like actually getting items from our warehouse to like people's hands, which like the coolest thing ever. Like Amazon makes it look easy, but it is a very complicated process of like shift, like getting things in a box and in a warehouse. And how can we make that more sustainable? How can we see it for SLA, get things out the door? That's always a big project that we're always thinking about too. And like international, like addresses in the US and Canada are easy. Addresses in India and China are very complicated. And so being able to get better at that is a goal, is a big goal of ours. Warehouse, and we have one in Asia, we have one in Sydney, Australia, and like those, the volume is increasing really, really fast. And it's fast. And so how can we get those guys more effective and more efficient is a big focus of ours, right? You didn't think I was going to say warehouses, huh? Warehouses are always a rough one.
Yeah, I often ponder that how much time, effort, and fuel and everything else goes into me enjoying a cup of coffee from my Keurig machine in the morning, because it doesn't just appear there overnight. There's all these steps in between me and that coffee that uh, I'm just blown away that we collectively as a society have even been able to achieve that, let alone what your ambitions are here to get that down to 8 hours is crazy to me to think about.
Yeah, there's the idea when you buy an Amazon product, if I buy toothpaste today and like I'm gonna get it tomorrow,
Mhm.
uh, and let's say I buy a couple hours later items, I also need like I don't know, paper towels, and then being able to put both of those items in the exact same box is it seems so simple, but that is insane. That process being able to do that is so difficult that it's pretty cool. I'd love to be able to get something like that someday. But they of course have like 80 warehouses and $1 trillion in market cap.
Yeah, the resources are abundant, which I think serves
Yeah.
the goal of theirs. Well, Brayden, you've been very helpful and generous with your time here, and I'm very grateful for that. In closing, to kind of wrap things up here, I'd love to get from you one piece of advice for somebody who's exploring some of these, technologies and solutions and things like that, who's facing, similar challenges as you. What would that one piece of advice be?
One, if you're thinking about like, hey, I want to try out gifting and see if it works in my space, a really good just use time is before a phone call you have coming up, like go to starbucks.com, buy a $5 digital e-gift and send it before the phone call and see if it changes the interaction at all. It's a really good one. Or send somebody a book from Amazon that maybe you're trying to build a relationship with. Be like, hey, I thought this book was cool, that it would like related to the space that we're in. Try sending it and see what the reaction is. I think that's those are two really bulls of like how you can see the power of gifting firsthand.
Love it. Absolutely. Sound advice. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, Brayden, to pick your brain further or maybe work with you, how would somebody do that?
I'm the only Braydan Young on all of LinkedIn. Thanks to my parents for spelling of my name. So connect with me. Let's chat.
Hey, shout out your parents for
Yeah.
making a good decision.
Yeah, right.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for your time today. If you want to get in touch with me or my team, anybody that's listening, it's nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode, and I will see you in the next.